Hey everybody, hope you guys are healthy and safe. So this is the Huawei Pura 70 Ultra. So Pura is Huawei's rebranding of its P series. And if you follow Android phones, you may know that Huawei's P series are known for its awesome cameras. In fact, Huawei's P series have set several mobile photography trends that we now take for granted. For example, the Huawei P20 Pro was the first phone to introduce night mode before Google did it, before Apple did it. And the Huawei P30 Pro was one of the first two phones to launch with a periscope zoom lens. Huawei likes to claim the P30 Pro was the absolute first, but that's not true because Oppo Reno had the periscope zoom lens too, and it's debatable which phone came out first. So we'll say one of the two. And if you go back before that, the Huawei P9 was the first phone to have a dual camera system. So the P series has always been a leader in mobile photography, and the Pura 70 Ultra is going to continue that trend. So the star of the show is this gigantic circular camera right here. It is a 1-inch sensor with a variable aperture between f1.4 and f4, and the lens is also retractable, meaning it pops out when you need to use it and then it retracts back in when you don't need to use it. Huawei said it mostly did that to save space, so the camera bump doesn't have to be as thick as the camera bump of the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. And also the fact that the camera lens sticks out a little bit means there's a little bit more room for light to travel before it reaches the image sensor, and that helps with image quality. So the star of the show is definitely the main camera, but my personal favorite lens is this 50 megapixel telemacro lens. So it's a zoom lens that can shoot at 3.5x zoom, about 75 millimeter. But in addition to a zoom lens, it also doubles as a macro lens. So that means you can take a macro shot of something while keeping the camera lens still kind of far away without needing to stick the camera lens all the way like within an inch of that object or subject. There are several benefits to that. Like for example, you're trying to shoot a picture of a bug that you see on a tree or like an animal. You can't really stick your camera that close, right? The telemacro lens allow you to take that shot from further away. And also when you don't have to put your camera up so close to something, you're not blocking the light intake, so you get better lighting. And finally, you also get natural bokeh because you're shooting from a distance. For example, I'm gonna take a macro shot of this can right here. So I can get really close to this can while keeping the lens kind of far away. And you see natural bokeh around the can. Now if I want to take the same macro shot of an iPhone, I have to get much closer to the can just to get the macro ability. And you can see there's no bokeh in the iPhone shot and there's distortion. Like that can doesn't look natural compared to the Huawei shot. This telemacro lens isn't new though. It was in the Huawei P60 Pro last year, which I used to take product shots a lot. When I don't want to take my camera outside, I would shoot with the P60 Pro. There is a new camera feature in here that we haven't seen before because, you know, the P phones have always been pioneers in mobile photography. So every year there's like a new feature that we haven't seen. This year is that this phone has a extremely fast shutter. So let me show you. Take some shots right here of this key. I'm going to shake the key like this. I'm going to take a bunch of shots. And then now look at the image. It is in focus. This is the first shot, right? Second shot, also in focus. Third one, in focus. Fourth one, again. So you see how fast that shutter was? I snapped 7 or 8 photos just like that, and every single shot is in focus. And this works on the zoom lens too. As you can see here, I am taking a picture of this dog whose tail is wagging very fast. But then when I look at the photos, you can see the tail very clearly. So this is the fastest shutter we've ever seen in a mobile smartphone. And to do this, Huawei is using a combination of hardware and software tricks. So every time you tap on the shutter button, this phone will actually take 2 photos. One at extremely fast shutter speed, which means it will capture motions faster. But then when you shoot in really fast shutter, you don't take in enough light. So that's where the second shot comes in. The second shot will snap the photo in a more normal shutter speed, which will take in more light. And then the Pura 70 Ultra will then use AI to combine the 2 images into one. So you get a shot that has the benefits of a very fast shutter speed, but also still get a lot of lighting. This camera is going to be very useful for parents of small children or someone with a pet that won't stay still. So anyway, I will come back to talk about the cameras a little bit more. Let's take a look at the rest of the hardware. So you have a 6.8-inch OLED screen, 120Hz refresh rate, 2K resolution, maximum nits of 2500. So right now This is barely 50% brightness right here. The screen is curved on the left and right side and also the top and bottom. So it's a quad curved screen. It feels very nice, particularly when you're exiting out of an app, you're swiping up, your thumb is running through a curvy part of the screen. Around the back, you have this vegan leather material with an X pattern, and you can actually feel the texture. So this camera module is gigantic. Huawei says this particular shape, the triangle, is to represent an arrow pointing forward because this is a camera hardware that's trying to look ahead. As mentioned, you have this retractable camera lens that sticks out every time you open the camera app. And then when you close the camera app, it'll wait like a second before the camera lens retracts back in. The phone weighs 226 grams and thickness without the camera bump is 8.3 millimeters, so very manageable, not heavy by modern flagship standards. As for the internal, 16 gigs of RAM and the chip, it's a Kirin 9010. Now, Huawei has not revealed much information about this Kirin 9010 chip, but Bloomberg did a teardown and found that it's very similar to the Kirin 9000 that was launched with the Mate 60 Pro. So this is a chip that is self-developed by Huawei in China. It's built on 7nm architecture, so it's not going to be as powerful as the latest Qualcomm chip or Apple's A chip, but I have not seen any performance issues, and 5G connectivity in Hong Kong has been perfectly fine. Now, that's in Hong Kong. If you're using this in Europe, in other countries, I don't know if it'll connect to 5G, but in Hong Kong, and I'm assuming many other Asian regions, 5G connectivity is fine. Like I said, day-to-day performance, absolutely no issue. You know, you can run any app on this, including gaming. But if you do care about benchmark numbers, the numbers are a little bit lower than what's in the latest chips. But benchmark numbers really are just numbers. The bigger obstacle for me and for a lot of us is, we already know this phone cannot run Google mobile services. So that means you can't install the YouTube app on this. You cannot use Google Pay. You cannot use Google Assistant. Is that an absolute deal breaker? No, because I've made videos on this a few years ago. You can absolutely use this phone still fine. Like, you can still run most apps on this, like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. All your banking apps in Asia will work here fine. And even some Google apps like Google Maps still work on here. You just cannot sign in. And if you use Gmail, you can access Gmail via Microsoft Outlook. And as for watching YouTube videos, you can do so on youtube.com in the web browser. Like I've been saying for the past 4 years, if you are someone who, like me, have your digital life very tied to Google, is this software situation ideal? No, it is not ideal. But can I still use this phone as my daily driver? Are there workarounds to do all the stuff that I would do on another phone? Yes, I can still use this phone. I just have to go through a couple of hoops. Now, as for the rest of the software, this is a global version of the phone, so it runs EMUI instead of the Harmony OS in China. But aesthetically, like visually, EMUI and Harmony OS look very similar to my eyes. I have a love-hate relationship with EMUI, I'll be honest. I think the animations are buttery smooth. I love looking at it, and there's a lot of themes that are customizable. And if you have other Huawei products like Huawei's laptop or tablets, this will play very nice with it. You can just like tap this phone on a Huawei MateBook and you can immediately connect it to devices. But there's still things that kind of annoy me, like for example, the notification tray, you have to swipe all the way from the top to bring it down. If I swipe from the middle, it just goes into the search. I've been saying this for years. I want to be able to bring the notification shade by swiping anywhere on the screen. Another thing that I've been complaining about for years is if I long press on an app, I cannot jump into app information, which is how I turn on or off notifications. To turn on or off notifications here, you have to jump into settings and then jump into apps and then do that within the settings page. On every other Android phone, whether it's a Samsung, Google, Vivo, Oppo, OnePlus, I can just go into app information and change the notifications directly on the home screen. You cannot do that on a Huawei software. Back to the hardware. Battery life on this phone is epic. The 5200 mAh cell is larger, but also Huawei's battery optimization has always been top notch. This phone is definitely one of the top 2 or 3 best battery life phones of all the major flagships out there. But ultimately, the Pura 70 Ultra is all about the camera system. And if you're buying this phone for camera performance, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Like I already said, this telemacro lens is very useful, and the new super fast shutter speed is going to come in very handy when I want to shoot random dogs or cats around the street or my friends playing basketball. I do think when it comes to the main camera, I like the color science of the Vivo phones a little bit more. I think the Huawei color science is a little bit, it looks over-processed. So like shots appear like overly brightened sometimes. But definitely the Pura 70 Ultra's camera system is one of the best on the market, like top 2 or 3. Now if you ask me, is it the absolute best? Is it better than the Xiaomi 14 Ultra or the Vivo X100 Pro? That is tough to say because it really depends on what you like. If you care about shutter speed first and foremost, or taking macro photography, then this phone is better than both of those guys. But for me, I like the Vivo's vintage filter a lot, and I like the Xiaomi's color science. Now as for the pricing, unfortunately, I do not know the European pricing of the Pura 70 Ultra, but this guy is quite pricey even in China. It's priced at basically 10,000 Chinese yuan, which converts to 1,450 US dollars. So even in China, it's 1,450. So I think this guy's European price maybe something like 1,600 euros. I already know some of you guys are gonna say this phone is way too expensive and say Huawei is like, oh, they're mine or whatever. And you may be right that in your particular European country, people are not willing to pay that price for a Huawei phone. But in China, this phone is selling very well. In Hong Kong, every time Trinity they're trying to get it in stock, it sells out right away. And in Malaysia, Huawei phones are selling quite well too. So that means there are people that are willing to pay Huawei's premium prices. And if you've been following Huawei, you know that they've always charged premium prices for their products. They've always seen themselves as a premium luxury brand. They're not trying to be a budget brand. And business has been going very well for them anyway. So there are people who see them as a premium luxury brand. And if you don't feel that way in Romania or Spain, that's fine. But this phone is still a popular item regardless. So this is the Huawei Pura 70 Ultra. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing to my channel. It will help me a lot. I have a lot more coming, including new products from Apple and a couple of other new AR devices too. Very fun. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching.